Hello, and welcome back to Evolving Together Now. And if this is your first time, well, welcome. My name's Dr. Tricia, and I'm glad that you're here. Remember, if you like what you hear, subscribe, and be sure to share it with your friends. Today is Sex in the Universe, Part 3. Passions of the S word. Sex in the Universe, Part 1, was about the universe itself, the big picture of the allurement of love, out of which the universe, including you and me, were born and live and move and have our being. Part 2 focused in on some of our animal cousins, in the exploration and expression of their sexual lives, to appreciate and affirm their audacity and diversity. So how do we, the human species, also dare to contribute audacity and diversity to the evolution of sex? I've had the following classic Peanuts cartoon in one of my books for several years. Frame number 1, Lucy, crouched down on the ground, says, "Look at that tiny little bug." Frame number 2, Lucy's now standing up. "It's appalling how little he knows. He's not like us." Frame number 3, Lucy continuing to look intently at the critter. "He doesn't know anything about voting or disease or earthquakes or love or Monday mornings." Frame number 4, Charlie Brown. "Who's better off?" as Lucy looks on. At first glance, we could be envious of the critter. After all, the bliss of some kinds of ignorance can be attractive, at least temporarily. And though animals and really all of nature have their own kind of awarenesses, Charlie Brown's wondering if they are better off, not knowing, not understanding, not having to feel and deal with life in the way that we humans can. Interesting that love is on that list, isn't it? A profundity of the human species is our unique capacity for self-reflection, awareness, consciousness in our thoughts, words, and deeds. It's a powerful contribution to evolution when we access it. What matters for animals and humans alike is that we be authentic and integrous to our true nature. A definition of consciousness from the Journal of Medicine and Life. Awareness and wakefulness are the two main components of consciousness. Awareness is defined by the content of consciousness, and arousal or wakefulness is defined by the level of consciousness. The awareness contains self-awareness, which perceives the internal world of thoughts, reflection, imagination, emotions, daydreaming, as well as external awareness, which perceives the outer world with the help of the 5 senses. Our human life and life all around us is absolutely better, safer, healthier when we human beings access the quality and depth of consciousness, self-reflection that we are capable of in care for one another, care for ourselves, and care for the earth. Passions of the S word. So the words sex and sexuality are often used interchangeably. I've used both in parts 1 and 2 of this series. Sex, sometimes used for gender, often used when really meaning sexual activity. So I want to take a minute to distinguish between each. So sex, technically that's referring to biologically whether one is male or female. Gender is referring to how we each internally identify with male, female, both or neither, regardless of designation at birth. Sexual orientation is who we are attracted to, who we're drawn to emotionally, romantically, sexually. And sexual activity, kissing, intercourse, etc. So from now on, I'm going to be more intentional in how I use each of those. So what about sexuality? Have you ever thought about sexuality being more than biological sex, gender, sexual orientation, or sexual activity? Sexuality or sexual health is often listed along with mental, emotional, physical, social, financial, spiritual on a wellness wheel, reminding us that each relates to the whole. They all have an influence on our well-being. So I wondered, what would it be like to put sexuality at the center point of our wellness wheel? What constitutes the various facets of sexuality? Self-image, relationships, spirituality, values, meaning, purpose, passions, communication, emotions, personality, enjoying nature, savoring food. Can all of this and more really have something to do with my sexual being? What would you add or delete? Oh, I would add empowerment regarding consent and sexual activity for sure, but empowerment in general. Anger at injustices, forgiveness. What in our lives does not encompass our sexual selves? I would say nothing. I am sexual because I'm breathing. I find this kind of reflection not only meaningful, but imperative to our viable contribution as a species. It's not to dilute the importance of sexual activity and reproduction, but rather to not limit it to the bedroom. My goodness, sexuality is far too important, so key to our awareness and arousal, our consciousness, as a people of compassion, of justice, of care and gratitude. It both needs and deserves to be named, claimed, and lived. What difference does it make for you to be exploring sexuality in this way? I've mentioned before that my years with the Franciscan Sisters of Little Falls was a pivotal time in my life, and that includes my life as a sexual being. From their teaching me how natural and beautiful sexuality is as part of our human experience, to also the fact that we are sexual beings whether or not we do it. Well, this was quite a paradoxical message coming from women in religious life. And I thought maybe they're just rationalizing their own choice to be celibate. But I'm so grateful I saw the beauty therein and just how important our understanding of sexuality is to all of our relations. Being lesbian has also compelled my yearning for understanding about sexuality. Aside from the years of confusion and fear about possibly being judged, being lesbian was actually a catalyst and a freedom for me to explore sexuality on my own terms, not on religion's or society's terms, as can often happen with social norms. And I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful the more that each of us, no matter our sexual orientation, because heterosexuals too, there's much to be discovered around the depth and power and the healing that needs to happen around sexuality. Our passions have power and are intended to be empowering, not degrading or abusive of ourselves, of one another, or of how we cherish and therefore treat the earth. I'd like to conclude today with an excerpt from Sister Ilia Delio's book, The Unbearable Wholeness of Being, God, Evolution, and the Power of Love. Love has been resigned to emotion and sentiment, emptied of any real power, and thus a thing of play. Modern culture's preoccupation with the physical body and the exploitation of the body as soulless matter reflects the deep human disconnect from self, neighbor, earth, and God. Sex has become more like a video game with the thrill of winning rather than part of the deep religious core of cosmic evolution. Evolution continues through humanity only when there is consciousness of love as the integral wholeness of love that includes a healthy sexuality. Awareness of our desires and attention to our deepest longings must orient us toward a unified heart and consciousness. Love is more than a survival mechanism. It is the fire breathed into the fabric of the cosmos that enkindles life. rendering life more than biological function. Love turns passion into transformative power. One might say that evolution depends on healthy sexuality. I invite each of us to continue exploring and healing and honoring the awareness and arousal of love that we are and that is all around us. We've got this. Thank you for being here. I hope your own journey of evolution has been enlivened. And remember, if you like what you heard or you're just darn curious, subscribe and tell your friends.